Happy Tuesday, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today, I am joined by my amazing co-coach of Never Ending Referrals, Steve Schlueter. Steve, why don't you say hi to everybody? Introduce Steve.
Hey, everybody.
Oh, that was awesome.
There you go.
All right, there you go. That's Steve. My name is Tammi Juengst, and we are the co-coaches of Never Ending Referrals. And today, we are going to talk to you about three amazing conversations you can have with your database and your sphere to really like just catapult things in 2025. And Steve, do we have some slides we're going to share?
Yeah, let's get those going. I'll bring them on up and we'll get into these amazing conversations. So,
Amazing conversations, right? All right. Now, before we jump into our conversations, we do have to actually just very quickly give you a disclaimer and talk about the TCPA. I'm sure that you're all familiar with the Telephone Consumer Protection Act or the Do Not Call list. What we're talking about today in this session are all going to be revolving around people that you know, people in your sphere. These are not cold calls. And with that, Steve, let's jump in. Let's talk about where this all starts and why these conversations are so important.
you got it, Tammy. Well, and folks, first off, again, thanks for being here. And Tammy, this whole journey of success with our database, and you and I start off so many of these conversations with this point right here, this little thing called the trust triangle.
Yep.
And you know, we often describe this with our never ending referrals folks as this is pretty much macro, everything you need to know about database success. Now, there's a lot of micro that goes into this, and yet, if our goal, Tammy, is to wind up being the trusted advisor, and then we've got to establish trust. And this came from Harvard University. And they did a study. In fact, they did an executive study of executives who were known as great leaders and why people followed these great leaders. And as they dug into this, it came down to the 3 points that we're sharing with you here. And I'm going to pull this back up. And yet I want you to think about the journey we're going on today is about helping you deliver on these points that create trust. And so the first point, Tammy, down here is logic. And the whole logic point is I know you can do it. I know your reasoning and judgment are sound. In other words, Tammy, what are we saying here? What is the logic piece?
Well, they trust that you know how to do what you say you can do. They trust that you know what you're talking about when you're talking about real estate.
Yeah. So part of what you have to do, if we go back to the macro and we back up a little bit, as somebody who's really desiring to build a business, and I have to go, how am I going to deliver on the logic experience? How do I make sure that the people in my database know that I know real estate, know that I know the market, and know that I'm the person to trust with their questions? I'm the person to ask about the market, not the media, not anything else. And of course, so I've got to have a plan and a strategy for establishing the logic position. And Tammy, let's talk about empathy. So talk to us about the empathy point here.
Well, empathy is so incredibly important. Sometimes, we tend to fall on the logic and what we know and how we can help, and yet the empathy piece is super important. And empathy is very different than, by the way, sympathy. Empathy
Hmm.
is just being able to put yourself in someone's shoes and coming from their point of reference, not your point of reference, theirs.
Hmm.
And we demonstrate that, through some of the questions that we ask or acknowledging. You can show empathy in your voice and your tonality, and yet it's a huge piece of building that trust.
Yeah. Well, and one of the biggest things here, Tammy, is that you really display empathy when you learn to listen well. Am I listening for comprehension? Am I listening to what people are saying? Am I listening to what their needs are? In fact, we're going to give you some conversations today that are going to help you really kind of dial in the relationship, be a good listener, and it all starts with, well, great questions. And Tammi, I really think this next piece is big too. It's the authenticity piece. And the authenticity piece means, I experience the real you. And I mean, we've all been in a conversation with somebody where we felt like we weren't getting the real person. This is where you hear people talk about salesy,
Hmm.
right? Today everything we're going to do is has nothing to do with salesy. And Tammi, I go back to early in my career, and I think authenticity is important for two reasons. Number one, it's the experience the customer has with you. They can feel it if it's not authentic. And number two, it's the experience you have in doing your daily work. Because Tammi, if I get to go to work every day and I have to be inauthentic every day to be successful, how does that go?
Well, it doesn't feel very good. And at some point, the wheels come off the proverbial wagon, right? And we're not happy.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of the things that we have seen, and it's why our program Never Ending Referrals exists. It started with there's so many people that struggle with this journey of I can't tell you how many people you and I hear it all the time, Tammi. I'd rather call an expired or a FISBO or a cold call. Well, good luck with the do not call TCPA today, doing a lot of that stuff, right? Then call my database. And a lot of this is because we don't feel authentic. We don't want to be salesy. We don't feel like we can be our genuine self. And if that's you, you're really in the right place today. Because Tammi, I go back to the early part of my real estate career, and a mentor of mine, she said, Steve, you really want to have a nice real estate business, just be friends with all your clients and you'll get a lot of referrals. Now, Tammi, I'm what we call a very high. How do you think that went for me as a high assertive behaviorally?
Uh, I already know what Steve said, everybody. He said, I've got four friends. I don't need any more.
I got four
So,
friends,
yeah.
right? I don't need any more friends. I need some buyers and sellers. And this is why I gravitated early in my career to expireds and for sale by owners. I wanted to talk to somebody that wanted to do something now. And of course, then there came a time. Now, thank God I listened to my mentor and I did build a database and I did put people on touch systems and I did stay in touch and mostly through the mail, mostly not consistent. And then the phone was hard for me with my database because I didn't feel authentic talking about fluffy and vacations and then figuring out how to have a business conversation in between all that until probably 3 or 4 years into my career, I heard a gentleman talk about being the trusted advisor. It was a guy named Howard Brenton back in the day, and he talked about being a trusted advisor and how one of his people, one of his students, positioned herself that way. And Tammi, I said, I can be that person. I can be that person authentically. I don't have to make believe that I care about Fluffy and all. No, I care about Fluffy, but you get it. And all of a sudden, it made success in this space really, really possible. Tammi, what would you add on this trust triangle and authenticity? Before we kind of move into those conversations, what would you add?
Well, it's really all three things that create trust, and trust is at the center of all successful relationships. And so
Mhm.
when we're talking about the database and success through people that know, love, and trust you, trust is at the core of it all. And it's why we started here as we walk into these conversations today. And here's the really cool thing. So often we resist knowing what to say or saying something that, oh, here's a great conversation to use. And we just want to talk like ourselves. And yet, when you practice conversations that work, they become who you are and they come out authentically and genuine. And the logic and the empathy show up and are very natural. So it's all three things.
Yeah. And Tammi, before we dive into the rest of this with the conversations, I want to address something here, folks. And this is probably many of you. When we poll rooms and we say, how many of you really really have your database dialed in and you've got them on 36, 40, 50 touches a year, and you're having quarterly conversations. And when we ask large rooms this question, it's generally under 5%. And so this is an area we know that is still, people are working to get their arms around it. And this will be the difference, Tammi, if for you guys that are with us today, I want you to think about right now some of the things that you can accomplish in this year ahead. I want you to consider a year from now, and you're about to go into the new year in 2026, and you've got a choice. And the way you lean into this thing called your database, your Met relationships, is going to make all the difference. And some of you right now are probably thinking about January 1, and you're going to wake up January 1 going, oh, hell, can I do it again? And it's, January 1 is a panic. Some of you have been really working at this, and you're going to wake up on January 1, and you already know where your first 24 or 48, maybe 148 transactions are coming from, because you have been building a relationship-based business. And truly, what we're talking about today, Tammi, is the difference between having a real estate sales job and having a real estate business. And when you have a real estate business, you're in relationship with customers. You have customers, you have relationships, you understand your customer. And by the way, they do have conversations with you.
Right.
In fact, they are value-added conversations, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And Tammi, I guess before we get into this, let's do a quick introduction of these two folks on the screen. Tell them a little bit about Tammi.
Very quickly, Tammi has been with Keller Williams. Gosh, I am at year 2021, somewhere in that realm. I'm out of the Carolinas region. I've got a business in the Mooresville, North Carolina area, serving Charlotte, Lake Norman. I'm also the director of Bold. I've been a Bold coach for 10 years. Co-coach of Never Any Referrals with Steve. Also a KWU master faculty, teaching the Keller Williams University curriculum as well. How about you, Steve?
Well, prior to Keller Williams, I was one of the top 20 REMAX agents in the state of Texas. Then got courted by a guy named Gary Keller to be a team leader in one of his market centers in Austin. Did that for 4.5 years. Led the early development of the Heartland region, and then operated a couple of market centers in the Austin area. Like you, a Bold coach, part of the Keller Williams University master faculty. And of course, our passion thing is Never Any Referrals, having these conversations with you and helping you build that business, not just being stuck in a real estate job that begins back at zero or near zero every year. So that's us. And Tammi, let's talk about
Get into it.
this right here. And so Susan Scott, what does she tell us, Tammi?
This couldn't be more true. The conversation is the relationship. The crazy thing is, and you all know this, the most common way that we all communicate right now is like this, right?
Mm-hmm.
We all communicate via text, and the truth is, you can stay in relationship, you can touch base with people, you can ask questions, all those things. Texting has its place, and at the core of it, however, if we never have true conversations with people, we don't have relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And, I always equate it to this, traveling for Bold, gone a lot, talked to my husband a lot on the road. And all of a sudden one day, what if I came home and said, you know what? We talk a lot when I'm on the road and I think we're good. How about if we just start texting?
Mm.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to fly. I don't know. Right?
Yeah.
It's just not going to fly. And so the truth is, we actually have to have conversations, and conversations that bring value and show that we care.
Yeah. And by the way, you can condition people that. Now you might say, okay, I'm of that generation where everybody does do this. And
Sure.
now, well, then use this to set up a conversation, right? Hey, so I reach out to Tammi and say, Tammi, hey, I got an important couple of questions for you. I wonder if we could grab a quick phone call this afternoon. What's a good time? And use that strategy to create the connection, and schedule a call. But this is where you're really going to get the depth, and this is where the referrals get generated. And we've proven this in the Bold Room when we've done text activities versus conversations. There's always more referrals and activity generated from the conversations. So this is not guesswork. It's like if you want to optimize your database, you got to have conversations. And by the way, let's dig into this, Tammi. I want to share with these guys a story, and I think it'll well, it'll make the point. And so I'm driving down the interstate, coming between Austin and San Antonio. I live in San Antonio, Texas, and the phone rings. And on the dashboard, it says Barbara DeLamo, and it's a 210 area code. So I know it's San Antonio, and yet I don't recognize the name. And Tammi, my response was Barbara DeLamo. Barbara, who the heck is Barbara DeLamo? And don't judge me. You might do the same thing I did. I went ahead and took the call, not knowing who that was, and then I pressed the button because it was in my contacts. I must know her, and I took the call and I go, "Hey, Barb, what's going on?" Now, not having a clue who this person is, right? And it's like, and she goes, no, I got to use her voice for effect, Tammi. She goes, "Well, hi, Steve." And I go, "Well, hey, Barbara, what's going on? How can I help you?" And she goes, "Well, I was calling to wish you a happy birthday." And I go, "Well, Barb," now, by the way, guys, my birthday's not for 3 weeks. And I'm going, "Well, Barb, thanks. You're a little early." And she goes, I know, I wanted to be the first one. Am I the first one? I said, "Well, yeah, you're either the first one or the last one, but you're definitely the first one." And again, I'm going, who the heck is this person? And then Tammi, she said, she goes, "Steve, I took Bold from you back in 2009, the very first Bold we ever had in San Antonio. Are you still coaching Bold?" And I said, "I am." And we talked about Bold for a couple of minutes. And then she said, "I know you had a girlfriend here in San Antonio. She actually sponsored one of our Bolds. What was her name? You guys still together?" And I said, "We are." And her name's Shelly. And she asked a couple of questions about Shelly. And then she said, "I know you're originally from the San Antonio area. You even talked about maybe making a move back here. Did you ever do that?" And I'm going, "Well, actually, yeah, I've been back in San Antonio area about 2.5 years." She goes, "Wow, I guess I was a bit late on that one." I said, "Of course, Barb, Barb, we represented ourselves." And she went on. Then she asked me, "What are you loving about San Antonio?" And she gave us a referral to a brunch place, which was really great. And we had a nice conversation. And then as we were wrapping up the call, she goes, "Well, tell me, what kind of big plans you and Shelly have coming up?" And we talked about a trip to Egypt. And Tammi, the whole conversation was 6 minutes. And I went from who the heck is Barbara? And 6 minutes later, feeling completely connected with Barbara. Now, as I hung up the phone, all of a sudden, I hung up, and all of a sudden I'm reflecting on the call and going, dang, I just got forwarded. And it was, think about it. Occupation, before, y'all familiar with Ford. We'll talk about it in a second. Family, for the F is family, friends. She asked about Shelly. Occupation, the O, she asked about Bold. Recreation, what are you loving about San Antonio? The dreams, the D, she said, what kind of big goals, future plans you guys have coming up? We talked about the trip to Egypt. And all this was a 6-minute conversation. And I went from who the heck is Barbara to feeling completely in flow, completely connected to her. Now, Tammi, here's the rest of the story, though. As I hung up the phone, I noticed on the dashboard that it didn't say Barbara DeLamo. It said maybe Barbara DeLamo. And on an iPhone, when it says maybe, that means that they're in your correspondence. And so I said, have I been talking to Barbara? We've been communicating. And so when I got home, I pulled up my email. And let me share with you what I found, guys. I had been getting an email from Barbara every 3 weeks for 7 years. Every 3 weeks for 7 years. Now, by the way, notice the disclosures here about just, make sure you send your emails the right way. And yet, what's the lesson here, Tammi?
What always strikes me on this is you didn't even know that you were getting emails from her. And it's because the majority of us wake up, we swipe delete, swipe delete, swipe delete, or you unsubscribe, right? Or you just don't even notice. And then all of a sudden, what happened after she called you? I bet that you actually opened her emails where you
Yeah.
had not been opening the emails prior. Would I be right?
Yeah. A couple of weeks later, I get another email and I actually opened it. You
There you
know,
go.
3, 4 weeks later, another one opened it as well. Don't, no, I didn't read them word for word, kind of scanned them. And yet now, why did that all of a sudden happen?
Because the conversation is the relationship.
The conversation's the relationship,
Right.
right? And see, here's the interesting thing. She probably thought she was doing the right thing and having me on some kind of campaign and sending emails. And little did she know that it was all falling on deaf eyes, deaf ear, however you want to define it. It wasn't making an impact. Yet one conversation completely turned the tide. In fact, Susan Scott of Fierce Conversations, who that was her quote, she says, every relationship succeeds or fails, one conversation or one missing conversation at a time. And so, if you're not getting the results you want in terms of referrals, repeat business, um, there's probably some missing conversations. And we're going to give you some conversations today to start making this easy as we introduce you to kind of our never ending referral system and the tools to make this happen. And so, Tammi, I'm going to go back to our slides here. And we said we're going to talk about 3 conversations today. And the first one, is the Ford conversation. And you just had it modeled for you with Barbara and that Barbara conversation. And yet, Tammi, walk us through how we use this practically and maybe doing reconnect with our database or just a database conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Barbara actually used all four, right?
Mm,
She did the whole Ford method, and everyone, that's not necessary. Ford is simply conversation framework, and we're sure that you've all heard of it, and yet are you using it? All you got to do is have just a couple of go-to questions for each one of those. Family,
mhm,
friends, what they do for a living, how's the job? What are you doing for fun? Just have those go-to questions. And when you ask the question and they answer, ask a follow-up question. You go where the conversation goes. That's the beauty of how Ford works. And the really cool thing about Ford that I'd love for you all to think about if you haven't heard it this way before is those four things are the things that are most important to every single one of us on this call today. When you
mm,
think about what those four things signify in our lives, those are the things that matter most. And so when we're having conversations with people around the things that matter most to them, that conversation matters to them. And again, now you're talking about things that matter most to them. That's what's so valuable about using that as a method.
wow. Wow. And so I look at that and man, could I cheat, Tammi? Could I go to like social media to get some cues on maybe how to lean into a
Should.
conversation I haven't had in a while with
Absolutely.
somebody?
You absolutely should. I mean, that's the beauty of social media. The things that people post are the things that are most important to them. So go pull
Mhm.
something from social media, and there's your question. There's something to talk about.
So maybe it's something with work or family or recreation. And now you have your go-to start in question. And Tammi said something really important. I want y'all to write this down. Um, the answer to the first question is the seed for the second question. So
Hmm.
when Tammi, we're always worried, well, okay, when I'm going to ask a question, well, then what do I say next? It doesn't matter. It's whatever they answer. So she said, hey, I saw y'all took a tropical vacation. Where were you at? And they say, Bermuda. I'm like, Bermuda. I've never been. What was the highlight of Bermuda? And it's just staying in curiosity. What would you ask a best friend, a trusted friend, a family member? And by the way, if I use that kind of energy in talking to them, Tammi, that's the way they feel towards you,
That's right.
right? It creates that trusted energy. And that's where the empathy connections get created, the authenticity through just being curious. And maybe we just re-enter some relationships with simple Ford conversations. That's
Right.
what Barb did, right? Just a reentry, and you can take any one of those points. So the second question is based upon the answer to the first question. That's the rule. And so,
Gotcha.
so Tammi, so that's Ford. So the simple Ford conversation, you can go social media, crawling to figure out where your entry point might be if you haven't been in touch with somebody for a while. And then, of course, later after your calls, record the conversations, right? Okay, Tammi, let's go to the next conversation. So we talked about part of this journey is being the trusted advisor. And now let's say I want to start to educate people, on the market. And so we're going to give you, I think it's the simplest conversation you can have with anybody right now, Tammi. We call it the care call, and it weaves in a business conversation. And part of what we hear Gary talk about this thing called MOFRs. What's a MOFR, Tammi?
Make offer for immediate response.
Make offer for immediate response. And Gary said this at the beginning of the shift. He said the agent who's going to win the market today is the agent with the right messages that match your market. And again, you got to understand your market and create messages that match your market, and then combine them with an offer. Now, in my markets, San Antonio and in Austin, these are messages that match my market. Your markets might be different. And I might be prepared for these conversations on phone calls. In my marketing, I might be putting out some marketing messages in my business email, some messages around these topics, and then I'm making an offer. And I've got to be prepared in my conversations to understand my market so I can make offers to them, and maybe dial in some of these message opportunities. So Tammi, in my markets, you've got all these things like we have a list to sales price ratio at our peak in Austin. Things were selling at 117% a list. Now it's 94 to 95. So that's a big swing the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
We're still one of the fastest growing regions in the country. Um, here's a possible message for all of you right now. And you'll find in almost every one of your markets, there's a seasonal dip. And buying the dip means, man, maybe you ought to be in the market in the winter when there's less demand, and maybe the seller's a little bit more flexible, on terms and price, and maybe I have more choices, and I'm not going to be competing as much if I'm in a low inventory market, and we call it buy the dip. And I can document it in my markets that it's happened last year, likely going to happen again this year. Negotiation, concession opportunities, particularly with builders. I might have a message that says, in my markets, Tammi, I can say, did you know that you can still get a fixed rate 30-year loan for 4.99%? Most people don't realize that. Well, with many of our builder inventory products and maybe even some resellers, you can. First-time buyers, less competition, more choices. I can address the housing shortage, the future of interest rates, and all of these things. And so, yeah, Tammi, let's tie this back and how it might show up in a conversation. And before we do that, though, here's what Gary said. It's the agent with the right messages that match the market. So you have to understand your market and what your message might be. And then you have to have a MOFR. And the MOFR is this thing that invites them into a conversation with you to talk about real estate. So the one we've been using very successfully with my agents is if you have any possible interest in buying or selling a home in the next 12 to 24 months, find out what the right time for you might be right now. Call me to schedule a no obligation strategy session. And Tammi, why do I say 12 to 24 months then rather than just if you're ready now?
Pipeline.
Pipeline.
And I'm filling my pipeline, and it's far enough in the future that it's not It's not committing someone, and it's also helping you figure out who might be the possibilities in the next 2 years. So it gets someone to raise their hand without
Mhm.
feeling like they have to commit right now,
Yeah.
which is really smart.
Well, and the other part of that too, Tammy, is we've got a really confused consumer about the real estate market out there. There's so much weird national news, and then, you had all this election stuff, and it's a very confused consumer.
Hmm.
And the person who's saying 12 to 24 months down the road, once if you sit down and have a strategy session with them, they might actually go, well, geez, we ought to be in the market now. Now that we understand the dynamics or the opportunities of the market, we're not waiting for interest rates to come down lower. We want to take advantage of what's in the market right now. And so many times today in this market, we just got to get to the kitchen table and have a conversation. And they may be more ready than they think once they're educated.
Right.
So, yeah. So, Tammy, let's go to a conversation model that where you have a chance to use some of your messages or make, offers actually in a conversation. And this would be a real easy conversation for every one of you to have right now. In fact, Tammy, I'm not going to pull up the slide yet, and um, we're going to model it, and then we'll go through the framework with them. Okay. So rather than distract you, so just be present with us as we share this. So Tammy, you're going to be somebody in my database. And I happen to pull up that you were on, I saw some pictures, you've been on a vacation, looked like tropical or something. And so I'm going to lean into that. Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Tammy, Steve Schlueter at Keller Williams. How you doing today?
Fantastic, Steve. How are you?
Oh, good. Hey, thanks for taking my call. Happy holidays.
Same to you.
Yeah. Hey, the reason I'm calling today, I've been getting calls from clients and friends, and they're just asking, gosh, what's going on with this real estate market? You know, is it going to go down? Is it going to go up? What are interest rates going to do? There seems to be a lot of confusion out there, and I just thought I'd reach out and shed some light on things. And gosh, before I get into that though, tell me, did I see that you and Bruce were just someplace tropical? Seems like I saw something on Facebook. Where'd you guys go?
We went to Puerto Plata. It's in the Dominican Republic.
I've never been to the Dominican Republic. What was that like? What was the highlight?
Well, this one was all about relaxation, and that's exactly what it was. But it's a beautiful country.
Oh my gosh, So you said relaxation. Did it do the trick?
Yes.
Oh, good for you. Good way to end up the year. Well, hey, Timmy, as I said, the reason I called was a lot of confusion out there in the real estate space right now. And I'm just curious, what do you know or what are you hearing, about the real estate market here in Mooresville?
Oh gosh, Steve, I mean, people still say that, prices are high and there's not enough inventory,
Hmm.
not enough homes to buy.
Yeah. Well, that's a pretty accurate assessment. What if folks, well, I think what people don't realize, Tammy, is we have a national housing shortage that's probably not going to get solved for, gosh, maybe 10 years. And, the upward trajectory we're on is probably likely to continue, for some time. And yet, the good news right now is we generally about this time of year enter a little seasonal dip, which means, it's less competitive and it's a good time for somebody to get out in the market. And yet, for you as a home seller, or homeowner, your values are likely going to keep going up, Tammy. So I'm
Awesome.
just, yeah, I'm just got curious though. What's got you watching the market a little bit? Is there anything you're watching for particularly?
Oh gosh, Steve, we're always looking to, make smart purchases or,
Mhm.
invest to build our portfolio. We own multiple properties.
Yeah. So still looking to add something to the rental portfolio. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Y'all ever been open to multifamily, something like a duplex, fourplex, something like that?
Sure. The
Yeah.
numbers work.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, I tell you what, you guys, we haven't talked about that in a while. And, I'd love just to sit down and maybe schedule a no obligation strategy session with you and Bruce. Would that be something, you'd be open to?
Sure.
Okay. And then I would schedule the session, blah, 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 blah. And then, hey, Tammy, before I let you go, though, and look forward to meeting with you guys on that, before I let you go, tell me what's the next big adventure? So where you going next?
We don't end one without planning the next. I think we're gonna do Maldives.
Oh my gosh, how amazing. I've heard fantastic things. Not been, it's on my short list. So
Yeah,
uh I'll be calling you to compare notes after that one. So all
love
right.
it.
Well, it's how'd that catch your radar?
Oh, if anything in the sun and water, I'm good.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Well, Tammy, it's great to connect with you. If there's anything I can do with you for you, real estate or otherwise, always reach out. We've got vendor solutions, things like that, if you ever need anything. And I look forward to seeing y'all next Saturday, and we'll sit down and just kind of explore opportunities for you. Okay.
Awesome.
All right. So, Tammy, that's a simple little care call. And let's first go through the framework of that, and then we'll talk it out. And so if this is essentially if we follow what we did, Tammy, now I
Mhm.
practice something called the Ford sandwich. Explain that, Tammy.
Well, I mean, it's just like a sandwich. I mean, there's the top, the bottom, and the meat in between. And so all you did was sandwich the business conversation in between the Ford questions, right?
Hmm.
Which are the things that matter most to me, and yet you still were able to bring in the business conversation. And you did mention at the top of the call that you were calling to talk to me about real estate, and yet you were like, and before I do that though, let's talk about what I just saw that you did. Right.
Hmm.
So all it's doing is sandwiching it in because it feels good for them. Feels
Yeah,
genuine.
yeah. So I mean, so in the salutation, that was really the magic setup, right? When I
Hmm.
said that there was a business component to the call, it didn't make it weird when I went there.
No,
And for so many people, it feels weird. I'm going, "Okay, I'm supposed to talk to people, use Ford. How do I have a business conversation? Tell them you're going to have one.
that's right.
Tell them you're going to say, hey, I got a really important business question for you. Hey, before I get into that, though, and then Ford question, and then appropriate follow up question. So I asked you about the trip. I asked you about the highlights of the trip. And then I transitioned to the purpose of the call. And I just reinforced, like I said, Tammy, a lot of confusion out there. And that was write down that question I asked her. What was the question I asked you, Tammy? It's a powerful question.
What was I hearing about the real estate market?
Yeah. What do
Well,
you?
by the way, that Steve, if we were we were just talking about mofers a moment ago, and the things that you can talk about. So when you ask somebody, what are you hearing about the real estate market? You either validate what my response was, that my response was correct, or you educate. And by the way, even if I was correct about what I was hearing about the real estate market, and Steve's like, oh yeah, that's exactly it. It also opens the door for you to talk about some of those mofers, if you will, in the middle
Mhm.
of that conversation. And
Yeah.
so it really, it's super smart to know what those are ahead of time and be able to put those up. Can you put that last slide back up, Steve?
Yeah. Well, and to the point there, Tammy, is that, when I asked you that question, what do you know, or what are you hearing about the real estate market here in Mooresville? And, again, to your point, not only did I validate that you were right, I kind of educated you in how you're right. And I also educated you that there is really some opportunity still in this market. And then I used it as an opportunity for an offer. The offer, which was I went in a little deeper, said, well, what's got you watching the real estate market? And you said, well, we're always open to the right investment. Now, it may or may not be a great time, for them, given the nature of the market, unless I find a special situation or whatever. And yet I don't know till we sit down at the kitchen table. And if I sit down and have that no obligation strategy session, the odds are you're going to bring some referrals my way in the trailing 90 days behind that.
That's right.
So there's so much that can happen here. And then I closed with a forward question: where's the next big journey? And so on. So that's conversation number two. So it's how do you have, how do I squeeze a business conversation in? And so, Tammi, that conversation, I think, it hit the trust triangle pretty solid, didn't it?
Hmm. It does.
We hit the logic. We talked about the real estate market, the educational points. We had empathy. We, connected with them and what they're doing, what's important. Sounded like two human beings talking to each other. Didn't sound salesy.
No.
No. So Tammi, we got one last conversation for him today. And let's talk about this whole journey first. One of the things in Nevering Referrals, Tammi, that is one of our, I guess, most popular sections with our students is the business to business conversation. And what we do to set up business to business relationships, partnerships, alliances, and have those people that can help our folks. Tell us about this guy here. What's going on with this guy?
Well, that could be a consumer, or a, let's say, a buyer that just recently moved to the area, and they left all of their service providers, businesses, where they went for everything behind. And we are most likely the first point of contact for someone that's looking, for some of the things that you see on the screen and then some. Where do I go to celebrate a special occasion? Where do I go to get one of those amazing birthday cakes that doesn't look like a cake at all? And we undervalue our worth to the business community as well as sometimes to our database when it comes to this. Where we tend to think anything home related, yes, I'd like you to become their lifestyle concierge and not just the real estate agent. Become the lifestyle concierge. Teach them to come to you when they're looking for a connection to anything business related in your community. And this is the great conversation that we're going to teach you to have, that you can have multiple times during the year, that brings great value to your database. It's my
Mhm.
favorite conversation.
Yeah. And before we're done today, too, is Tammi, part of Never Ending Referrals, as many of these folks might have heard about the D2 system.
Hmm.
That was created in Never Ending Referrals. And it just, when you think about following DTD2, you only really have to have 4 conversations a year. And if I follow DTD2, I could have, I think you said could do this one twice a year.
Absolutely.
And it's good for 13 weeks because I'm going to go through my database over a 13-week cycle. If I do it twice a year, it's 26 weeks of my calls. It's so simple. And Tammi, let's model this one for them as well. And in fact, I'll put the conversation up on the screen after we've done it, and you can screenshot it or do whatever you want there we'll make sure you have this. So calling Tammi in my database, a quarter has gone by. It's been 3 months, and I'm following up, and maybe it's been 6 months. And this is, I had another call, and now I'm doing this call. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hey, Tammi, Steve Schlueter, your favorite real estate agent.
Hey, Steve.
Oh, how you doing today?
Fantastic. How are you?
I always appreciate you taking my call. I'm doing fantastic. Thanks. And working on a little project. I was hoping you could help me with it. I know you guys are really well connected. And before I get into that, though, I just curious, did you guys take the trip yet to the Maldives?
No.
Ah,
I know
is
we
it?
would talk about that. Yep,
Yeah, is it still on the radar?
absolutely.
Okay, okay. I want to hear when it happens. So it sounds like another great adventure for the Juengst family.
Absolutely.
Hey, Tammi, I mentioned I'm working on a little project, and as a real estate agent, you can imagine we've got people moving to the area from all over the country, actually the world, and when they move here from other parts of the country, they've left everything behind, and they don't know who's going to be their local doctor, their dentist, who's going to fix their car, where they're going to get their hair done, you name it. And one of the things we're doing is we're putting a little directory together for our clients and friends. In fact, we'll make it available to you as well. And that is, we want to curate the best of the best from the people we already know. And who are you using that's really doing, a great, great job for you that maybe we would include in this directory of great service providers. In fact, it doesn't cost them anything. We just want to make sure people have, access to the best people. And so, Tammi, I'm just curious, in the last, 60 days or so, has there been anybody that's serviced y'all in any way, in any place y'all have experienced that just was like a 5-star, really blew you away? Somebody that maybe should be in our directory for our folks?
Oh gosh, yeah, we actually just had some landscaping done in our backyard, and they did a great job.
Oh, wow. Okay. And just what was the name of the company?
It's three trees landscaping,
Three Trees Landscaping. Okay,
and we got
fantastic.
more than three trees.
But you got more than three trees. So you got the bonus package,
Right.
right? So I'm curious, Tammi. I would love. Sounds like somebody we'd want to have in our directory. What kind of work did they do for you guys
We actually did a bunch of landscaping around the pool.
around the pool? Okay. Oh, fantastic. Uh, and love to reach out to them. Is there a specific contact that I should reach out to that maybe you have there?
Yeah, his name is Tim, and
Kim.
I
Okay.
would give you his number.
Okay, and I appreciate that. Tammi, I'm going to reach out to Kim and see if they'd like to be included in our directory. And uh, let me ask you this: would it be okay when I reach out to Kim if I were to mention your name that you had sent us his way?
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate that. Tammi, maybe there's another introduction you can help me with. We're coming on that time of year here where it's going to be tax time. And, my CPA retired a couple of years ago, and I haven't found that 5-star CPA. And do you happen to have an introduction of a great CPA, I mean, top tier that you feel it might be a good introduction for our folks?
Oh gosh, Steve. I until you said top tier, I was going to hand you over ours. However, I think that Bruce always feels like there's more to be had or to for us to keep. So
Hmm.
I don't know that we have like the top one.
Understand. Well, I know Tammi, our network being what it is, I know I'm going to come across that person pretty timely. And let me ask you, when I do, would you like an introduction there? Would that be something that would be helpful to you and Bruce?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Well, as soon as I've made those connections, I will get that your way as well. And Tammi, I tell you what, as soon as we have this directory all pulled together, I'll make sure you know how to access it and all those resources as well. So we want to make sure our folks have access to the best people for whatever your needs are, and and also our people that are moving to the area that are kind of starting thin. Tammi, before I let you go, tell me what big plans are coming up for the holidays, man, just around the corner. Any big doings?
Uh, just family. Yep, just
Yeah.
family.
They coming to you or do you get to go to them?
No, they come to us.
Oh,
Yeah,
good for
we're
you.
we're, we're the hosts.
Yeah. And get it and get it done and then get to stay in your own bed. That's a beautiful
That's
thing.
right. That's right.
Perfect. Well, y'all have a great holiday and New Year. And again, we're always here to serve you real estate or anything, Tammi. Is there anything I can do for you right now?
No, I appreciate you doing this.
All right. Thank you, Tammi. Appreciate your help with this, and I'll get that CPA connection to you just as soon as we've made that.
Awesome.
Tammi, that's it.
That's it.
That's it. So peel that back for a moment.
Uh, one of the reasons I love this conversation so much is it's so value added to your database. And number one, he said he's working on a project for past clients, friends, family, people like me. And I know he's a real estate agent, and yet here he is taking time to put together this curated list of basically, 5-star professionals in the area. And so already that's not taking.
Mm,
That's he's creating something that is complete value add to the people in his world.
mm,
And I love when I had an experience. we're sharing with you, you asked if you could use my name when you connected with Tim. And here's the thing, think about the relationship equity that gets built between Tim and I when Steve reaches out and says, "Oh, by the way, Tammi referred you a local, to me. I'm a local
Mm-hmm.
real estate agent, and I'd like to add you to this directory free of charge, by the way, and be able to pass referrals on to you."
Mm-hmm.
It's, that's not a cold call to a business. It's a warm connection, and you're already bringing value to that connection by not asking for anything in return.
Yeah.
And then when you ask me about the CPA, it's brilliant this time of year, by the way, everyone, to ask about a CPA because so many people don't feel that they have like the 5-star CPA, the top tier, as Steve put that. And so as you continue making those calls, Steve's going to continue reaching out to all the people in his network. By the way, you should write that down. That's a fantastic word to use when you're having those conversations. None of us want to be in somebody's database, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just want to say, oh my gosh, as we continue to reach out and talk to our network, I'm sure that we're going to uncover, a CPA that would be that top tier. Now, Steve, I know when we talked about this in the past, you're going to continue. You might end up with 2 or 3 CPA referrals, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Well,
then
that's
what happens when you connect with those CPAs?
yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing is when I find that CPA, Tammi, I'm not going to stop asking the CPA question, maybe for another 3 or 4 weeks until I put another placeholder in that spot.
That's right.
And as a result, because see, I'm not just looking for the CPA, I'm also looking for people who have the need for a CPA. And I might identify 6 people that have a need and then 2 CPAs. And
Hmm.
then Tammi, when I reach out to those 2 CPAs, and we give you all the business to business dialogues, how to have these conversations and never ending referrals. Um, when I reach out, I've got in hand 2, 3 referrals connections for them right there. In fact, we just dropped in the chat, guys, that conversation for you. You've got the 5-star conversation. We've also got the DTD2 schedule right there for you. And so that's all right in the chat right now. So if you'll grab that. And then Tammi, just as we wrap up, a couple of things here. So you feel just, if you can't chat it, screenshot it right here. You've got that 5-star conversation. I'll give you just 3 seconds, and then we'll kind of put a bow tie on all of this. And Tammi, talk to us about their journey through the database. I mean, this is the biggest opportunity probably for everyone that's on this meeting, this Zoom today, and share with them what we can do to help them on that journey if they'd like to continue these kind of conversations.
Well, and I want to jump in the chat really quick. David, you asked a question. What format is the best for the 5-star directory? It is going to be whatever works best for you. I know we actually use Google Sheets because the Google Sheets has a web address, and we've connected that web address to a QR code, and that QR code is on everything. We send that QR code out. We have it on magnets. We have it on everything. We don't require people to reach out to us so we can connect them. We just ask them to let us know when they use someone on the directory. And by the way, they share that directory with other people. It's literally just about giving and bringing value to your database. So I trust that that helps. As we wrap up today, so thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. Steve and I have so much passion around your connection with the people in your database and creating your biggest business asset that you possibly can. And that's literally what we do here at Never Ending Referrals. And so you've got opportunity walking into the new year to join us on this journey and dig really deep into creating that business asset. And we go through 8 sessions, and you'll see what the different sessions cover. Steve, I think session 2 is probably one of the most important because we
Mhm.
really talk about the different behavioral styles, and we're all wired differently. And sometimes that becomes our biggest hurdle to success in this business, right? Is, we watch what somebody else does and we think that's the only way that we can be successful, and it's not something that's natural for us. And there are
Mhm.
so many ways to be successful and bring value to your database. And so we really kind of unpackage that, and we do it early because it's super important. We talk about the business to business strategies. We bring in social media. Social media is where the consumer lives. We talk about client events, and that's a big one as well. That's a great way to keep in touch with your database. Spoiler alert, it's actually not about the actual event, it's all of the things around the event. So we walk you through that. We talk about the 8x8 and how to put together a fantastic 8x8 that really solidifies the relationship. We talk about in a more deep way what we did today. How do you become that trusted advisor? What do those conversations sound like? In fact, Steve, you and I every quarter, based on what's happening in the market, we bring you new trusted advisor conversations that you can then have with your database. So we change those every quarter based on what's happening in the market. So that you can pose yourselves as that local economist of choice, the realtor that they would never work without. We talk about geo farming, and while we talk about connecting to the people in your database that know you, you might be saying, well, then how does farming have anything to do with this? And farming is just another database that's very listing specific. And we dig into, like, how do you choose the farm? How do you break into a farm? By the way, we're going to teach you how to get results in weeks, not years, right? Weeks, not years. And it works. It works beautifully. And then last, we bring in all the video communication and put it all together by helping you create a business plan around your database so that you succeed in those relationships. Here's how you do that. You can click here to actually get yourself registered. The investment for Never Ending Referrals is $39 a month with a 5-month minimum. Our live sessions start on Monday, January 6th. They are at 12 o'clock Central. We meet the first Monday, first, second, and third Monday of every month, not the last. And you also, by the way, here's what's really cool. Steve, you and I have been doing this for years, and
Mhm.
we record everything. All of our interviews with agents that are absolutely crushing it in their database, all of our past sessions are all on this online e-portal that you have instant access to. So it's not just the live lessons, you also have access to, like, oh my gosh, there's hundreds of videos in this library. We have people that have been with us at Never Ending Referrals for, oh my gosh, Steve, probably 5 years,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's because we're constantly updating how we can help you be successful. So join us today. We would absolutely love to be your partners, creating that huge business asset and helping you wake up on January 1st next year excited about knowing where 60-70% of your business is coming from because you poured the value into this business asset, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing, amazing feeling.
Yeah. There's also the registration link is in the chat, I believe. So you can grab it there if you didn't grab the QR code. So Tammi, 3 conversations. We dug in pretty solid here. You've got some meat you can use, and it's just the beginning of making your
Oh
database
gosh,
work,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
and if nothing else, we left you with today is this confidence that you can have the conversations, that you can build that position. And you might think, okay, my database is lost because I've been way out of touch for too long. And the truth is, you can, just like Barbara did, you can reignite your database in one conversation.
That's right.
And the other truth is, they're not sitting there waiting for your call. They are busy with life, and they're not sitting there going, if that Tammi Juengst doesn't call me, this month, I'm done with her. They're not thinking about you.
No, they're not.
They don't have a clock ticking of how many years and days and weeks it's been since they talked to you. And just connect from giving. Just have a forward call to re-enter, and we'll help you with the rest of the journey. So anything else in the chat, Tammi? Otherwise, we'll put a bow tie on this time.
Oh gosh. Yeah, this is what makes business fun. This is what makes you like wake up in the morning and your feet hit the ground and you're just excited. You're
Yeah.
excited about your business. This is like the greatest career on the planet. And when you discover how you can have conversations with people that don't make your palms sweat or your hands start to shake and your phone to weigh 400 pounds, it's
Hmm.
so freaking fun. It just
Yeah.
is. So yeah, we're here for you. Happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Thank you so much for giving us an hour of your day. We are so grateful for that, and we hope to see you all January 6th.
All right. Let's bring in 2025, folks. See
Yes.
ya.
See you guys.